All right, so welcome you all. So as today is the last day, as the last leg, now we will talk about this chapter called Industry and Infrastructure. But before coming to this chapter of Industry and Infrastructure, two things I would like to say. First, that look, this is a summary I have already expressed in the previous class. When we are talking about the external sector and the sustainable development, I have told you that this is the summary provided by the institution, and that suffice by and large for those who have crunch of time, those who think that reading original document might be time taking. It has been briefed that way so that almost all your requirements are being catered properly. So that's one thing I would like to say. I have already shown you that document yesterday. This is the document today. We will be talking about from that document directly. Second, some of you were concerned about the PPT things. As I told you yesterday, that this document itself is by and large having everything which has been said in the PPT, and this is at one place available for you, quite handy if you are going with the printed out version, or even digitally it's very good from the readability point of view, so that you can refer to. Now, what is this chapter and what is the significance of this chapter when it comes to industry and infrastructure? Look, from prelims point of view, some kind of factual informations might be asked. As you know that this year, this very year we are going into, this financial year, infrastructure looks like the topmost priority, as the finance minister in her budget this time has emphasized upon infrastructure. So needless to say that infrastructure is our priority. Second thing, why industry is important, that you know that we had gone through that pandemic time, and now, as I have already told you yesterday, that how we are gradually moving towards what you can call as pre-pandemic time. So this chapter is very significant from prelims point of view. I will be bringing your particular emphasis on those things which looks very significant from prelims point of view, and we will also look into that what could be the potential question in the mains, which thing you must remember. As you know, already if you see this year's mains, the gone mains has already asked questions on infrastructure and all, but then even still the potential is there. One thing, as I requested earlier also, I would like to bring it to your notice again, that it's not about the rat race of the data. It's not about that you are mugging up every data coming in front of you, but what is more important, that you should have a trend analysis. You should try to focus more on the analysis and to apply that information in various capacities. Now, there is something I would like to start with before getting into what exactly the chapter says, where economic survey, what they have highlighted this year. Some background might be useful. First thing first, something about the India. You know what, we had the history of resilience. This is what I love about my country. We have proven our worth time and again whenever the time was testing us. I would like to give you two quick reference which is coming in my mind related to this. One is the cryogenic technology way back 1990s. When we wanted cryogenic technology, obviously the big shots like USA, they denied us that no, we are not fit for it. We have taken time, we made our own, and now you can say that we are better in cryogenic technology. We have our own indigenous system. One. Second, I still remember vividly that how in 1990s, particularly if you remember the Kargil war situation, in the Kargil war when our enemies were on advantageously better position because they were up in the hills, we requested to some of the developed countries for the GPS support. Again, they declined as usual, keeping their priorities ahead, they declined. We took time and we came up with our own GPS, Navik, as you know, much better than, better precision than many of the countries now. These two stories I chose to start my conversation of today to tell you that India has proven that we have the resilient character, we have what is called bouncing back bank kind of approach, and this pandemic is no exception to it. This pandemic, as you know, was a tough time again, and this is the time when India has proven, remember that self-reliant, what is called Atmanirbhar Bharat, when we had tried to prove again our worth in various capacities. We have proven that yes, we may bounce back from this situation no matter how tough the time is. This chapter particularly proves my stand. So what I just said, that even in the pandemic time, and when, if you do not, you should not be forgetting that we got a Delta variant which was very deadly to us, and we had even vaccination crunch that time. There were several issues coming up. So keeping this in mind, that we got almost 1.5 or let's say 2 months in that tough time, still India has shown fairly good in terms of industries and infrastructure. So this chapter is, to me, if I have to say in one word, is hallmark of the resilient character of India, and proving to the world that whenever the time is testing us, we are even improving. Now, before getting into what exactly is in an industry, what is in infrastructure, and why this is so priority for the government, let's understand some terms and terminologies first. As I tried with external sectors, here also, if you know these terms and terminologies and something associated to that, perhaps you can enjoy the chapter in much better way. Now, there are certain terms, let's understand those terms first. What it means when I say industry. Exactly what industry means, when we say industry, what is this classification? How we say this is industry, and what could be the classification? For my listeners, I would like to say that generally you might have heard already that economies are divided into primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, as you divide them. When we say industry, industry have one unit from primary, and that is what is called mining and quarrying. Mining and quarrying, that is what you call as industry. Plus, when we say secondary sector, from secondary sector we have manufacturing, construction, then various types of service, or you can say in terms of electricity, gas, water supply, related things. So these 4 things putting together, that is mining and quarrying, manufacturing, construction, electricity, gas supply, is gas, water supply, etc. These 4 things putting together you keep into the industry. One thing is coming from primary sector, rest coming from secondary sector. These 4 together called as industry. So the moment I say industry in India, this means we are referring to these 4 things: mining, quarrying, manufacturing, construction, electricity, gas, water supply, etc. Right? That putting together is called manufacturing, industry. In the industry section, the biggest, if you see, share, decently good share is coming from manufacturing. However, electricity, gas, water supply is something, even in the COVID time, this was not stopped. So you can say this is something which was continuously positive. While we have seen in the COVID manufacturing, especially in the lockdown time, the manufacturing and the construction, even mining and quarrying was something which was in the negative trajectory. So this year's economic survey is trying to tell us where we stand now in terms of mining and quarrying, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of construction, in terms of electricity, gas, water supply. So general behavior is manufacturing is something which get the biggest share in the entire industry. In terms of, if I say GVA, even electricity, gas, water supply is something which is continuously in the positive territory despite the fact that we got the lockdowns, and it's very much understandable. That's the one thing. When we say industry, you should be knowing that industry means these 4 things. Now, however, when we talk about industry, there is yet another classification, and that is what you can call as big industries and small scale industries. Big industries where the capital is needed at in big amount. If the capital is needed in big amount, you call it big industries. And if the lesser capital is needed, then we can call it small scale industries. So when we say small scale industries, they are with very few or almost no capital. That's how the term is used. So small scale industries refer to all that, and this classification is applicable since 1956. If you see, when we got industrial policy, so 1956 onwards, Dattatreya committee had talked about it, and we called it small scale industries, right? That's how the term SSI was used. However, in 2006, SSI term got converted into even more organized term, and that is called MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises. So micro, small, medium enterprises, when we say micro, small, medium enterprise, that simply means that if you are reading somewhere small scale industries, that's not wrong, but now we prefer the term micro, small and medium enterprise. In 2020, we got a new classification of MSME, and the classification now is if they have 1 crore, you can say 1 crore is the the capital investments, and 5 crore is what their turnover, then we call them micro. If 1 crore is the capital and 5 crore is the turnover, we call it micro. Be careful, it's and, not or. So both has to be there. If it is 10 and 50 crore respectively, we call it small, and if it is 50 crore or 250 crore, 50 crore and 250 crore, 10 crore and 50 crore. So this is how, when we say micro industries, that is 1 crore capital and 5 crore turnover. Small is 10 crore capital and 50 crore turnover. Medium is 50 crore and 250 crore. Please be careful. As per economic survey, now the new definition has been used. For those who might have heard it, I would like to clarify here that you might have read it somewhere that it is 50 crore and 100 crore. Initially, when the definition was given in 2020, we said 50 crore and 100 crore. But soon, I said so within 2 months, the definition was further changed, and now it is called 50 crore and 250 crore. This year's economic survey has given this definition. I think they had given the definition to clarify this stand, so that there is no confusion in anyone's mind, because last year there was some ambiguity regarding the definition. That's why, going extra mile, this year's economic survey has provided this definition. So when I say micro, small, medium enterprise, they are very important. They might not have that big contribution in the GVA term, but they are the employment generators of India. They are the one who create a lot of employment opportunities, in various sectors. So that's why when we talk about industry, you should be careful that we should be talking about what is the situation in small scale industries. We also should be talking about what is otherwise the big industries, where they stand, and so on and so forth. So I hope you're knowing now, when I am saying industry, I'm largely referring to 4 of them: mining and quarrying, manufacturing, construction, electricity, gas, water supply, these kind of things. And when I say industry, either they could be big industries. So by logic, more than 250 crore if is there, your turnover, you can call them big industries. So big industries, and again, for some of you who want to know that big industries further divided into that was called small cap, mid cap, large cap, depending upon how much of the capital they have. If up to 5,000 crore, we call them small cap. From 5,000 to 20,000 crore, we call them mid cap or mid capital, and from 20,000 crore above, they are called large cap. That's how the terms are used. But we can call it now big industries and micro, small, medium enterprises. We have to look into both the performance, where we stand and what we are trying to do into that. This is first thing which should be clear in your mind. So when I'm saying industry, don't go vaguely upon it. It means these 4 things. When I'm saying micro, small, medium enterprises, you understand the definition now. So one more thing which you should be knowing when we talk about industry, and I will be referring it, that is what is called central public sector enterprise. What this means? When we say central public sector enterprise, that means these are the enterprise which are public sector and run by, you can say, managed by central government. There could be state run public sector enterprises also, but here we are talking about only Cpscs, central public sector enterprise. When we say public sector, that means at least 51% or above is the partnership or is the ownership of the government. If in anything government's ownership is 50% to 100%, anywhere ranging in between, is what you call as central public sector enterprise. As of now, you can say we have roughly 256, if you see the data, 256 central public sector enterprise. That's what you should be knowing. Now, when it comes to CPSE, we have almost 256, and their net profit, you can see that how important they are. Their net profit is something which ranges about roughly what you can say, 96,000 crore is what their net profit is, means barring the expenditure and all. So the net profit, if something close to you can say 1 lakh crore or 96,000 crore, clearly indicates that they are very important for the central government. But here I would like to say one more thing, that when we talk about CPSE's Central Public Sector Enterprise, Niti Aayog is continuously working on it. Niti Aayog last year in 2019-20 was given a task. Niti Aayog was given a task to identify those central public sector enterprises which are important for the economy. They are called strategically important. There were categories made, category 1, category 2. So obviously we are not going into the detail that you study in your classes, that CPSCs could be further looked into in terms of Maharatna, Mini Ratna, Navratna, these kind of classifications. But when it comes to central public sector enterprises, Niti Aayog is trying to figure out that which of them are otherwise important, called strategically important, let's say nuclear energy, banking sector, financial sector, which are important. We should not be going for disinvestment much into that. On the other hand, there are some not so important from strategic point of view. They can be disinvested. So now government is continuously working upon it. Here I would like to, why I'm telling you all that in the background, so that once you know all these things, you can enjoy the chapter in better way. Last year, Amitabh Kant, who is from Niti Aayog, had given a model, and that model is what government is trying to accommodate. What is that model? Model says, let the government make something, give it to the private or other hands to operate, because obviously if government is trying to operate that, it might be little burdensome for the government. So let's make something, give it to others to operate, get money from there, that is called monetization. Don't give it to them completely, don't transfer the ownership, allow them to operate, take the money in bulk, now use this money to make something else. So could you see the cycle? Government is making something, giving it to the private papers to operate, get the money in bulk, ownership is not transferred, the money we got, we make another road, giving it to private people to what is called to operate it, getting money in bulk, using it to make hospital, using it to make schools. That's how we are trying to work upon. So this is the new mantra which Niti Aayog has advised, and that's the reason why Niti Aayog is continuously looking into that which of the central public sector enterprises to what extent can be disinvested. So some of them are very important, and when we say strategically important, it has to be something related to internal security, it has to be something related to the financial inclusion, it has to be something related to the social welfare. If they belong to that point, to those kind of things, they should not be disinvested. Government is loud and clear on that. Rest we can think of it. That is called strategic disinvestment. The term is used, it's quite popular these days, called strategic disinvestment. So when we talk about industries, this is something most of the time we'll see that we are talking about the central government, and strategic disinvestment is something which is visible there in terms of government. That's one thing. Even in terms of industries, financing is another very significant thing when we are trying to work upon. We are ensuring that how the finance is continuously coming. We are looking into every option of investment so that our industries can, because if industries has to grow, what is needed is a conducive atmosphere for finance to make sure that the money is coming. That's why we are working a lot on FDI. I have already told you FDI in the external sector. We are working a lot in terms of FDI, that how FDI can come. And I told you that if you see last year, despite taper tantrum, despite the worries of taper tantrum, India's FDI flow is not that bad. It is something which is, you can say that shown some moderation, but then even FDI we are sitting at a very good position, leading towards what is called fourth biggest forex now. When it comes to FDI, we have two types of FDI. Understand this point, because if you understand these things logically, it will be clear to you. There are two types of FDI. One is what you call FDI through automatic route, means you can directly come and invest. Another is through what you can say government route. Let me give you a practical example. Say for example, Tesla want to come to India. I don't think Tesla is the right example now. Ford want to come back. Yes, I would like to say that those Ford lovers must be happy now. So Ford want to come back. Now Ford can come directly automatic route. That means there is no intervention of the government. That is called FDI through automatic route. Or maybe that government has, you need government approval and you can come via the government route. This is also sometimes called as Bombay route, Delhi route. Automatic is called Bombay route and what is called government is called Delhi route. So these terms are used. FDI automatic you allow in those sections where they are not very significant from internal security point of view or financial inclusion, or where the weaker sections might get hurt. So there you allow automatic very easily. However, in FDI we have the brackets, like the general definition of FDI is we have the brackets that start with 10%. When it is 10% of the investment coming from the foreign, we call it FDI. If not, it may come into FPI category. So 10%, then we have a bracket called 26%. If anywhere you allow 26% on above, that simply means now when I say FDI is allowed for 26% and above to 49, that clearly means now we had invited FDI in such a way so that they can be big role player. Let me give an example. Let's say Ford want to come to India and we say you are allowed only up to 24%. That means you can come and operate, but you will have collaboration with any Indian company. Let's say Ford is having collaboration with Maruti. They are having collaboration and up to 24% Ford will have, rest Maruti will have. The idea is very clear that Maruti should have upper hand. 20%, 24% when you say. Now you must be wondering why 24%. Because the company rule says any decision of any company should be passed by 3/4 majority. That means 75% vote is needed. So if anyone is having 25, 26% vote, you cannot take decision without that fellow. That's the reason why in certain sectors we allow FDI only up to 24%. Then from 26 to 49% is something where you can allow. So if I say Ford is allowed up to 49%, that simply means that they can have 50-50% partnership with the Maruti, but still the owner will remain Maruti because 50% and above belongs to Maruti. Then we have another category and that is called up to 74%. Please understand the logic so that you have not to mug up to 74%. That means you allow others to operate, but you want an Indian player to have at least decision making power. So if I say Ford is allowed up to 74%, that means they can have the company along with the Maruti. They are having the maximum money up to 74%, but Maruti having 26%. That means without Maruti, Ford cannot take any major decision. And then we can say 100%. That's why in FDI you got these kind of things. FDI up to 24%, FDI up to 49%, FDI up to 74%, FDI up to 100% via automatic route, via government route. So if you see, we want to promote FDI in the defense, again to some extent, automatic to some extent, what is called via government intervention. We are promoting FDI in insurance. Insurance is something which is growing night and day in India. So we want to promote FDI in insurance. So whenever we are promoting FDI, do not try to mug it up. Understand the logic. Insurance is something which is growing sector. India need that sector to grow. That's why we have gone up to 74%. 74% is FDI is allowed now in insurance sector. We'll go sector wise. That's why I'm not as of now referring here. So this is how we got industry. So in industries, when we are talking about what generally we say, we look into that what is industry, and I told you that the general behavior of India is that out of 4 things, that is mining, enquiring, construction and what is called manufacturing, along with electricity, gas, water supply. If you see these 4 things together called industry, then we have big industries and micro, small, medium enterprises. Central public sector in companies is called Cpscs, 256 in number, and they have decent profit up to almost 96,000 crore, clearly indicates that they are important for the government, but still we are now following a model, monetization model, where we are trying to disinvest some of them which are strategically not so significant, and we are allowing FDI in all full lengths to make sure that the money is available for our industries to flourish. That's one thing that you should be knowing about industry. Now, when we talk about industry, how you gauge, as I told you that economic survey provides you first the data. In the external sector class, I have told you that how they provide the critical data, important data to us, and also provide what you can call as analysis of that. So if you see that how you look at whether industries are doing good or not, that is viewed in terms of one very important index that is called Index of Industrial Production. I'm sure you are aware of it, but then even I would like to bring it to your reminder that in India, most of the statistics are coming from Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, what you call Msme, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, within which we earlier had two branches, in a way two departments. One was called NSSO and other was called CSO. Since 2019 they has been merged, and now we call them NSO, National Statistical Office. So it is the NSO which provides this data, Index of Industrial Production. This data tells us that how our industries are performing. So it looks at various industries and overall performance in that how we are performing in terms of manufacturing, how we are performing in terms of construction, in terms of gas, electricity, etc., in terms of mining, quarrying. That's how we got Index of Industrial Production. Obviously, it deals with 23 subsectors also, that how we are performing in each and every sector. In this IIP, the biggest chunk belongs to the 8 core industries. 8 core industries which are in a way the prime driver of the economy. It means coal, it means electricity, it means crude oil, it means petroleum refinery, it means fertilizer, it means what you can say when we talk about all these kind of 8 core industries. So these 8 core industries, larger section is coming from energy. As I just told you, we have coal, we have electricity, we have natural gas, we have crude oil, we have petroleum product, then we have what is called fertilizer, steel, cement. So that's how make the total 8. So these 8 of them are called core industries, and out of this entire IIP, 40% weightage, roughly speaking, though slightly more than that, 40.27, I'm rounding it off, 40% weightage is something belongs to these 8 core industries. The statistics of 8 core, how they are performing, how those 8 cores are performing, that statistics comes from Ministry of Commerce. There is one, within the Ministry of Commerce, there is one department called Department of Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade, DPIIT. Within that we have Office of Economic Advisor that provides us this information, that how 8 core industries are doing wonderful. In fact, these kind of information sometime in prelims you come across, that IIP is calculated by whom, or 8 core industries are provided by. So be careful, 8 core industry data is coming from Ministry of Commerce, DPIIT, while this comes from Msme. This data is very important data. Every year it tells us that where we stand, and this is considered to be one of the benchmark to identify how our industrial section is doing, right? However, this data is also viewed in terms of how much of capital goods we are producing, consumer durables, consumer non-durables, these kind of things. So generally goods are divided into these kind of things. When we say capital goods are those goods which are helping to create even more sources, what you call capital good. Consumer goods are those goods which we consume, that can be viewed in terms of consumer durables. Consumer durables are those goods which we consume but they stay for more than 3 years, like refrigerator, car, these kind of things. And consumer non-durables, as you call them, fast moving consumer goods, FMCGs, they are those goods which get consumed, let's say in a very short period of time, like all the vegetables, eggs, cloth, all that. So that entire data is provided by IIP, and this data is very important to know where. So IIP data is very significant. Then we have what is called 8 core industry data, which tells us these 8 core industries have their own history. That's why they are being prioritized. In fact, it was way back in Russia, Lenin, who identified 4 of them to be the prime driver of the economy. Then United Nations has made it almost 12. In India, we are not calculating all the 12, but we are looking into the 8 of it. So this is how we got 8 core industries are there, and then we got what is called IIP data, which tells us where we stand. Another data which is very important is popularly called as Ubicus survey. Ubicus is order book. Order book, that what is the order book means how much of order any company is getting. Inventory, the inventory is that how much of the things, so let's say if I say company, how much of order book a company is having, how much inventory a company is having, what is capacity utilization. Let's say Maruti's plant can make 100 cars, how much of actually they are making. If capacity utilization is less, clearly indicates that business is not running in the full swing. This Ubicus survey is something which is called as business expectation index. When we look into, done by RBI, so we try to understand that what is business expectation, how they are performing, and so and so. Not a surprise, all these data is provided in this chapter. Then we have data like how much of gross fixed capital formation. That simply means that how much of new thing we have added in terms of capital. Capital in simplest means refer to anything which increases your source of income. So if you're increasing your capital, that means over the period of time your income will increase. That's why gross fixed capital formation. The good thing is that in India it hovers around 30, 35, sometimes little lesser, sometimes little more. Like this time we have seen little lesser, but still in the bandwidth of 30. That's what we call gross fixed capital formation. Gross fixed capital formation. So these are the data. So now you understand what is industry, what it means. This means 4 sector. You also understand that is mining, inquiring, manufacturing, and then what is called construction and electricity, etc. You also know now that how we got big and small scale industries. You know that industries needs fund, and we are working on several fronts from local investments to promoting FDI. And then we have what is called some of the indicators like index of industrial production, which is calculated by NSO. Then we have 8 core industries data, which is calculated by Ministry of Commerce, Department of Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade. Then we have Ubicus survey, which is calculated by RBI. We have gross fixed capital formation data, again coming from NSO. That's how we come to know that how industries are performing. Now you tell me, if economic survey has to talk about all that, what they will do? They will first say that where we are in terms of industries, what is the Gva contribution of the industries, then maybe they are breaking each of the industries, how they are performing, how manufacturing is performing, how construction is performing, how mining is performing, how gas, electricity, etc. is performing. That's why the data starts. If you see in this chapter, the first thing they say, what is the total industries Gva calculation. However, the industry's Gva calculation looks around to be 28%. This is what they had referred to in terms of, for my listener I would like to say, in the month of January, one important data is given by the government, and that is what called advance estimates, which is going to tell us that what exactly is going to be roughly the GDP before the financial is getting close. So they had referred that almost 28% looks like industry's contribution in the GVA, almost 28%. By that logic, if you say almost 28% from industry, roughly 18% is coming from agriculture, so you can say 54% roughly coming from industry, from services. So less or more the same statistics as we got the last year. So 28% coming from industry, 18 roughly coming from what you can say agriculture, and roughly 54 coming from service sector. That is how we got GVA contribution. That you already know in the state of economy chapter, but that's how when we talk about industries, they talk about all that statistics. That's one thing. So this chapter definitely talks about all these things. What is the GVA contribution, where we stand in IIP, what has been the behavior of the IIP, what has been the behavior of 8 core, what has been the behavior of Ubicus and all. Now look, as I already told you, you are not supposed to get into mugging up the data, but you should be knowing that why these things are significant and what has been the general trend of it. So that's how they talked about industry. Then they also had gone with what's called finer details of some of the sections, like where we stand in terms of steel, where we stand in terms of textile, coal, and these kind of things. When it comes to infrastructure, in infrastructure we talk about energy, we talk about aviation, we talk about roads, we talk about railways, we talk about ports. So that comes into the infrastructure when they are trying to tell us. And you know what, infrastructure, there is a very famous saying, put 1 rupee in infrastructure, it will return you 3 rupees. This is government's focus this time in terms of infrastructure. To promote industries, one term which I'm sure you have heard of it earlier also is called production linked incentive, PLI. This has been introduced in the system now, PLI, production linked incentives, with almost, if you say roughly speaking, I can say that 1.97 lakh crore rupees is something which is kept into the PLI across 13 sectors. There are 13 sectors where PLI is visible. However, some of you might be wondering, is it really 13 or is it 16? I have read somewhere 16. 3 of them has been already notified, so that makes it 16. So if someone is saying 16 is not wrong, but survey confined it to 13, saying that 13 sector having what is called production linked incentives, where what we are trying to do is any industry which is doing wonderful in terms of production, accordingly incentives are given, and government is this way trying to promote industries. One more term which is very much into the discussion and will be reflected here is that, for infrastructure, last year we got from 2020 to 2025, for 5 years, we got very ambitious program. Why this program is needed? Because 2019, the India has got a dream. In 2019, Prime Minister from the Red Fort, and Prime Minister in a way is representing the country, had got a dream. We got a dream, and the dream is that by 2025 we will be a 5 trillion economy. And then we got the COVID. That's why I started the story with the positive note. Whenever the time tested us, we had proven our worth. So if we still have that dream, despite this predicaments, despite these challenges, if we still have that dream of $5 trillion for 2025, in that case, this is the time when we should be having additional focus on our infrastructure. If we have additional focus on infrastructure, if we can make our logistics better, our roads better, railways better, definitely we can achieve that. We are still not out of the track. This is what I hope now you understood the logic why I started with that positive story, to tell, to have 2 references quickly from the last 20 years, telling that whenever time tested, we have proven the worth. So the dream is still on. India is still thinking that by 2025, we will be a 5 trillion economy. As of now, our GDP is hovering around roughly, you can say $3 trillion, roughly $3 trillion in terms of nominal. So in that case, if we really want to be 5 trillion economy, we have to work upon our infrastructure. That is very clearly identified by the economic survey and even the budget. If you see the budget, why we had gone up for more expenditure on infrastructure. This is clearly visible in the document also. So if you really want to focus on infrastructure, there's a very significant problem. For those who are listening today, for the and if any capacity has missed yesterday's chapter, I had given an emphasis upon what is called process reforms. Even here also in infrastructure, we are looking into that. There's a problem in India in terms of infrastructure and programs, and the problem is the delay of the project, one problem, and then lack of coordination. You might have seen, this is very irritating, but that has happened earlier also. It's not that anyone was at fault. We grow gradually, that's how it is. So earlier you might have seen that roads are made, and then the telephone connection, people are coming, they're again de-shaping it, getting their wires, getting it fixed, and this way the money is lost, this way the cost increases. Now, to avoid these kind of things, 16 ministries has brought together on board. So 16 ministries will be together, including railway, etc. So that if there is railway is supposed to make a bridge, will tell to the corresponding transport department and the state roadways or state highway authorities or national highway authority that we are going to make bridge, and once the bridge is completed, then the rest of the road will be made. You might have noticed it around you that they had made roads on both the sides. Rest they are making sure that once the bridge is made, that will be completed. So the idea is that let's bring them together so that we get more faster development of the infrastructure. This is what is called Gati Shakti. Gati Shakti. 100 lakh crore rupees, yes, you have heard it right. 100 lakh crore, that means almost you can say 100 trillion crore rupees has been given. But that does not mean that it's a fresh allocation. It simply is the cost calculation that all the projects putting together will be of worth this much. Here one more term is coming which has been quite in discussion, which I will be referring again, and that is called, we have what is called infrastructure pipeline, national infrastructure pipeline, when we are getting what is called 111 lakh crore rupees. So it does not mean 111 here and 100 lakh crore there. It is the rough estimation. So Gati Shakti I will be referring now. Gati Shakti is what our again Prime Minister had said from the Red Fort, and this is simply to bring people together for better coordination. So 16 ministries will make sure that they get clearances together, they are better coordinated. It should not be the case that one is doing in their own way, then other is doing something which makes their work futile. So this will expedite our process, and definitely infrastructure will be. So that Gati Shakti is something which is visible in our outlook here. For testing, etc., we got laboratory development. So all that is what this chapter is talking about. So I have this background will help you to understand so what you should expect from this chapter. By the end of the chapter, you should understand what exactly industry and by and large the performance. You should understand what is going on in micro, small, medium enterprises, what is going in terms of where we are in terms of various indices like IIP, 8 core industries, Ubicus, in terms of gross fixed capital formation, in terms of banking credit, these kind of things. You should be knowing what is going on in central public sector enterprise, and then what are sectoral analysis of each of the industries, along with what is being done for FDI, then what is there in terms of infrastructure, what is being done for roads, railways, etc., etc. So this entire chapter provides statistics. It's going to be very informative. Let's now, with this background, once I have given you the background, you know, I have now you will understand, because once you know all these things, then you can enjoy what the inputs has been given. So let's start now. So when it comes to industries and infrastructure, obviously the overall sector performance has been provided. So if you see the overview of industrial sector, so as I just told you, that share of the industry sector in the nominal GVA is something which is hovering around 25.9%, 25.9%, but it looks like as per advanced estimates that it will go close to 28%. The original document has highlighted that advanced estimate will be something close to 28%, but GVA is something 25.9%. Electricity, gas, water supply and other utility services, the only subsector which experience a positive growth. You understand it, because even the lockdown, they were not affected. So as you know that we have now 4 sectors, you can see it in the graph. One is mining and quarrying, then electricity, gas, water supply and other utilities, manufacturing is another, and construction. These 4 are called industries. So if you see, when we say mining and quarrying, this is mining and quarrying, as it's a primary activity is kept at the bottom. Look, everything is a logic. Needless to say, the maximum contribution is coming from manufacturing. Manufacturing is something which is having the maximum. Electricity, gas, water, if you see, it is something which is on the positive territory continuously. Continuously it's going good. And if you see in terms of construction, so if it is asked to you, they are not going to ask you the finer details, but at least general understanding should be clear. The maximum is manufacturing, followed by construction. Then you got what is called this electricity, gas and mining and quarrying. So this is the general behavior. Manufacturing is the biggest, construction is the second largest, then gas, electricity, it is something which is continuously increasing, as you know, because even in the lockdown that demand remained. While construction got on a halt, manufacturing got on a halt, is the reason why if you see in 2021 and compare it from 21-22, last year these all were in the minus, except the gas, electricity. That's what we have highlighted here, that in 2021 electricity, gas, water supply and other utility services were the only subsectors experience a positive growth continuously. Why others not that positive growth continuous? Because we had seen uncertainties. We got the Delta variant and then a lockdown has come, then again state where wise restrictions were there, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason. And then if the growth of the industrial sector, if you see 22.9% in the first half of 2021 vis-a-vis the corresponding period of 2020, if you see from last year, our situation is that industrial sector has improved by 22.9%. And why it is? Because last year it was into the minus trajectory. So we had improved by 22.9%, clearly indicates that now we are almost coming into the pre-COVID time. So this is what the general behavior of the industry. So now I hope you understand that why I had given you the background. So these four are the things which are being looked into. Overall Gva contribution as of now is 25.9, but advanced estimates are saying that it is going to be almost 28%, which looks justifiable looking at the trend. And then if you see that growth of the industrial sector is something which has improved from the same time of the last year. I've already told you that how the same time April to December is calculated because of those 9 months data. So if you see monthly wise, from the last year when the lockdowns were there in 2020, in 2021 the improvement is visible. Then predictions for 2021, as I told you, is this is what we try to highlight here, is going to be almost 28%. You should be having the round figure, 28%. This is in the advanced estimate that 28% will be the industry, roughly 18%, as I told you, agriculture, rest will belong to you can say service sector. IIP recorded, now you know what is IIP. So this chapter has also highlighted that index of industrial production recorded a negative growth of 8.4%. Index of industrial production recorded a negative growth of 8.4% in 2020 due to the impact of pandemic. However, there's an improvement if you see that it grew by 17.4% as compared to minus 15.3 of the same. So if we compare in the lockdown year, now here for sake of convenience, I will be preferring the term lockdown year for 2020 to 21. That means 1st April 2020 to 31st March 21, that is called lockdown year, and our point of reference is 1st April 2021 to you can say December 31st 2021, because that data is available now. So if you see this way, we have shown the improvement. Now again, you are not supposed to mug up this data, 17.4 improvement, but you should be knowing that we did decently well from being in minus trajectory. So if you see that where IIP is showing that yes, now we are coming back on the track. Our industrial production is something which is coming back on the track. Similarly, if you see index of 8 core industries, now you know this also, 8 core industries, that is something which grew by 13.7%. If you see between the April November, 13.7. So IIP, yes, it has gone up. We are coming back on the track. Core industries, 8 core industries, we are also growing. Is it in across all 8 core? If you see, there's a trend. Reasoning for growth, as you know, we had improved performance in the steel, cement, natural gas, coal, electricity. However, fertilizer and crude, please, now this is an important data from examination point of view. I am highlighting it here. This is an important data because fertilizer and crude oil registered a negative growth. This is something which you have seen, that otherwise by and large in 8 core industries, which I have told you that 5 belongs to the energy, then we have what is called cement, fertilizer. Fertilizer and crude oil is something which is in the negative territory. I've already told you, but as I look, it is mentioned here: steel, cement, natural gas, coal, electricity, fertilizer, crude oil. So that's how, and then one which is not highlighted here. So one is a steel, cement, natural gas, coal, electricity, fertilizer, crude oil, and petroleum refinery. These are the 8 core industries. So by and large, we have done well. Fertilizer and crude oil has gone a negative growth. This is something because of a lot of challenges we had that led to what is called the crisis in terms of fertilizer and crude oil. And now if you see the capacity utilization report, I told you that how we got capacity utilization. That means if Maruti had capacity to make 100 cars, how much of car they were actually making, that will be called capacity utilization. So if you see, it has decreased substantially in the first quarter of 2021, that means the lockdown year, due to severe restriction imposed. It is, however, less severe during the second wave of COVID due to the flexibility lockdown measures. So you can say that by and large, if you see that when we got Delta variant, then even in that quarter of Delta variant, it was not that bad as it was in the first lockdown, because the first lockdown was very restricted, very, you can say harsh. While the second lockdown has given some movement allocation and all, is the reason why we can see capacity utilization is relatively better. Now this is something which is a general behavior. Anyone, you need not to get the facts to understand it, that how in the lockdown year 2020, the quarter 1 data, quarter 1 is your April, May, June data, is something showing clearly that capacity utilization was to bare minimum, while in the same time when we got Delta variant, almost in the same time, little 1-2 months later, when we got the Delta variant, that time capacity utilization at least was there. It was not that bad. The reason being because some movement were allowed. So this is what they tried to figure out. If you see RBI's business expectation index, that remains stable. As I told you, that business expectation index tells us that what is going to be order book, how much of inventory, how much of capacity utilization. So this business index, and please be careful, this data is given by RBI. It is also popularly called as Obicus survey. As I've already told you, that this is called Obicus survey also. So this RBI business expectation index remains stable with only a slight downturn in the second quarter because of the pandemic. Otherwise, it is something which is going good, clearly indicating why this is important. It clearly indicates that our business atmosphere is having strong fundamentals. Even in the lockdown of the lockdown year, the moment we started opening up, as you call it, unlock 1, unlock 2, etc., the business started coming back on the track. That clearly proves that overall business atmosphere was good. That clearly proves that fundamentals are good. Fundamentals are good. We were just putting the things on hold, on standby, keeping the pandemic treatment as priority. And the moment we got little normalization, our activities started again. Clearly indicates that business expectation were not looming. It was not that we got a kind of dissidence. It's not that we got scared that now God knows what will happen. It's going to be uncertain. So overall, you can see why this is important for you. Why this data has been, because this clearly indicates that despite this concern of unemployment, you can say that unemployment issue is something which could have been there for a shorter period of time, which was knee-jerk response of the situation. If business expectations is something which is good, that means sooner or later again the employment situation is going to be relatively better than what it might have been there in lockdown year. So this is how, when we talk about RBI's business expectation index, that's important. Then gross fixed capital formation, as I just told you, it remained around again aggregate gross fixed capital formation. It has grown up, and we again is something around 30%. So if you see that there is a growth in aggregate gross fixed capital formation by 5.4%. However, it is not, and if you see 3.7% respectively in 2019-20, clearly indicating that otherwise gross fixed capital formation, though we were thinking that it might get a jolt, it is not that bad. The reason being because if you can recall in the lockdown time, even what we tried not to have what is called completely slash kind of activities. Even government was taking the responsibility on their shoulder, doing a lot of fixed capital formation in terms of construction, machinery and all. So, and then gross bank credit, as you know, that if you really want to see industries performing, I have told you yesterday that how high frequency indicators are useful, because if you say industries are performing, it should be in synchronization with the bank data. If now industries are performing, the bank credit also should go up, because if bank credit is not going up and you say that your industries are performing, it seems to be mismatch. That is why, if you see the gross bank credit to the industry sector is something which has increased, clearly indicating that yes, we are into into the right trajectory, and in the lockdown year it was bound to be negative. If you see that how we got FDI in industries, FDI, if you see that highest ever annual FDI inflow we have witnessed, highest ever annual FDI inflow, clearly indicate that India is now viewed as a destination by the industrialists across the globe. They now believe that obviously I don't want to get into that kind of analysis, as some of you might have read here and there. Is it because of anti-China or sentiments or all? But one thing is for sure, that India is now viewed as India, Vietnam, even Vietnam is something which is India, Vietnam, Bangladesh. These are some of the countries which are now being viewed as an alternative to China. So keeping this in mind, if you see, we have highest ever annual FDI inflow, reflecting a growth of 10% as compared to the previous year. So that is what is the data has been provided. Then what exactly has been done in FDI, that we had given a chart for it, that how the measure taken to allow greater foreign participation. Defense sector, FDI is allowed through automatic route up to 74%, which was earlier 49, we have increased it to 74%, automatic route. For companies seeking new industrial license, FDI beyond 70%, 74%, up to 100 is via government route. So be careful, and now you understand the logic. In defense, we cannot allow directly coming and owing it. We can allow them up to 74% automatically, but after that it will be done only with the government intervention. In insurance sector, this is something which I strongly believe you should be ready for your one question in prelims this time. Insurance sector, permissible FDI limit has been increased from 49 to 74%. That is something which has been done with the automatic route, and allow foreign ownership and control with safeguards. In certain cases, ownership is also allowed, but there has to be safeguards. So if you see, it has been increased to 74% in the automatic route. Now, insurance sector is something which is going through, you can say, a complete overhaul. For my listeners, I would like to say something additional information here, because I think in the prelims this could be significant when it comes to insurance sector, because India is actually looking forward for the insurance potential. IRDAI is one which is taking the lead. In fact, the India's insurance sector is still in a way monopolized by some of the companies. One thing is there which is required for insurance sector to be better is called reinsurance. What is reinsurance? Let's say there's a company called Apollo Munich. If they are going for insurance of medical, an epidemic has happened, don't you think the company itself will go bankrupt? So there should be some kind of reinsurance to them. There are big companies globally, they do the reinsurance of these. From India, we have general insurance company called GIC that does the reinsurance. As per the rules of IRDAI, whenever a company of India is going for reinsurance, at least 5% of reinsurance should be from GIC. This is called obligatory cessation. So if you see, this is the term is coming from cession, cess and ION. So when we say obligatory cession is something which is 5%. That means if Apollo Munich want to reinsure themselves, at least 5% of the reinsurance amount should go to GIC. That is GIC Re of India. Now that has been reduced to 4%. That brings clear message that we want FDI to come into the insurance sector. We want to grow in insurance sector. Even LIC is something which is coming with one of the much awaited IPOs. Government is trying to lose its stake. So keeping this in mind, you can see that insurance sector is something which is prioritized. Defense sector, I've already told you, we are changing our gears in defense sector from being importer, even we are now trying to be exporter also. Petroleum and natural gas sector, FDI is permitted up to 100% under the automatic route in cases where the government has accorded in principle approval for strategic disinvestment. Now you understand strategic disinvestment. So let's say government had said we are going to disinvest any of the company, oil company. In that case, 100% FDI through automatic route will be allowed. Telecom sector, yes, it is 100% automatic route. So be careful. Telecom 100% automatic. Petrol, gas 100% automatic. If it is something which is into strategic disinvestment, that's why in the beginning I have told you all these terms. Insurance sector 74% automatic. Defense sector 74% automatic. 100% government route. So this is how in general the behavior is. If you understand the logic, you have not to mug it up that which sector has got how much of FDI. Then curbing opportunities, this is something which is also very important in terms of FDI. We want to allow FDI, but we don't want hostile takeovers. Hostile takeovers, what you can call as opportunistic takeovers. So we make sure that we have that kind of norms where hostile merger, hostile takeovers are not allowed. So an entity or beneficiary owner of an investment lying in a country sharing land can invest only under the government route. Government is having proper intervention in this matter to make sure that FDI is something which is not taking the hostile takeover route. There are other measures like standard operating procedure. We are having what is called doing ease of doing business so that FDI proposal can come easily, we can process it better. Very importantly, we have FDI monitoring cell also to follow up with applicants, investors, and to expedite FDI proposal with a view, identity, and hurdles if any. Interministerial committee, so this is how we got FDI monitoring cell, which makes sure that we are welcoming FDI. We are welcoming FDI. They are in a way facilitators to FDI in India. Then we have Interministerial Committee, IMC, which is under the chairmanship of Secretary, Department, again, as I told you, Department of Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade, to take appropriate decision on delayed proposal. And so why this is there, Interministerial Committee? This will make sure that if there is any problem between the various different ministries, they will work as incubator, they will work as a facilitator. So did you notice that we got FDI monitoring cell that let the FDI come? We are making sure that there are every possible facility available. Then we have what is called Interministerial Committee to expedite the process if there is any confusion between the departments and ministries, which is resulting into the delay of the proposal. But obviously that all has to be done in the good faith with the government. We want FDI, but look, Tesla is a classical example. We want FDI, but not them to dictate us. We are looking for win-win situation. It's not that you should be dictating us no matter how big you are. So this is how, when it comes to standard operating procedure has been improved, FDI has been allowed, hostile takeovers is something which we are very specific about. And also this is how we are creating very positive atmosphere in terms of FDI. So did you notice what we have done so far? We have understood that what is industry, and in the industry what has been the performance. As of now you can say GVA 25%, but advanced estimates is 28%. This is one take home you should have. And you know industry generally means four things, that is mining and quarrying, that is what is called manufacturing, that is what you can call construction, and electricity, gas, water supply, and other utilities. General, the maximum chunk is coming from manufacturing, followed by construction, then gas, and then mining and quarrying. This is a general trend. The utility things has continuously increasing across the year. The reason is very obvious, because even the lockdown they did not stop. Other has gone through some ups and downs, knowing this fact that we got several restrictions at intermittent time. Then you have also understood that how index of industrial production has shown improvement from the previous year, if you see, and this is quite visible that how overall the industries are coming back on the track. 8 core industries which have more than 40% of the weightage in the IIP, almost all of them are showing improvement except fertilizer and crude oil. They are in the negative territory. If you see that the business expectation index or a Abacus survey is proving that despite the fact that capacity utilization was very poor in 2020 and has slightly improved in 2021 in the first quarter despite the Delta variant, yet the business expectation is not into the negative territory. That shows that fundamentals are good. Banking capital is affirming, it's confirming that our industries are actually growing, because if the banking capital data is in synchronization with that, you can say it confirms it. It confirms it that yes, they are doing by and large good. So that's how we got when we talk about, then we have also seen that in terms of FDI, how in the defense 74% automatic, 100% through government route, in insurance 74% automatic, and in some case even complete ownership provided with the safeguards. Here I told you that refinancing is something which has also been in a way open to FDI. Then you have seen that hostile takeovers, we are very careful about. FDI monitoring cell is there to facilitate FDI, as you know, and even we are also saying that we have what's called interministerial committee, which makes sure that if there is any project delay because of confusion between ministries, that is something which is expedited. So that's how the findings so far. Let's move further. Now, if you see that how the performance of Cpscs are, as I told you that they are having what is called 256 we have in number, and if you see that their performance is something, though it's slightly increased now, that's why I was saying 96,000 crore, but as per the 2019-20 data, it is something, there's a delay in the data. The later we have now even better data, and that is what we call roughly 96,000 crore is the profit of net profit of Cpscs. I have already told you that government has notified for new public sector enterprise policy for the strategic disinvestment. So we got what is called new public sector enterprise policy for strategic disinvestment, and you understand strategic disinvestment means significantly disinvesting in those areas which are not that important from internal security point of view, from social welfare, financial inclusion point of view, and that thing is being proposed by Niti Aayog. So Niti Aayog has talked about strategic disinvestment, and the idea is that those sectors which are important for the economy strategically, they should not be disinvested much, but those which are not that important, let's say hotel and all, that we completely can now disinvest. There's no point of government is taking that burden. Let's use that money to create more assets. That's how we are looking forward for. In the beginning I have told you, strategic sectors are atomic energy, space and defense, understandable, transport and telecommunication, power, petroleum, coal and other minerals, banking, insurance and financial services. So something which is required for energy, something required for what is called telecommunication, transport, and obviously atomic energy, space and defense, banking, insurance and financial sector. This is something where we want to be a little careful while disinvesting, but rest can be disinvested. So that's how we got the term strategic sector. This is also called category 1. If you want to read some, you might have heard this term also, category 1, category 2 in terms of disinvestment. Category 1 is where the disinvestment is something which is bare minimum, and category 2 is where it can be privatized easily, it can be closed also. So we are now into the next level of what you can say industrial reforms. So this is how government is looking forward for it, and by and large if you see that certain Cpscs exempt from the scope of the policy, such as those which are set up as non-profit organization. Now there are some of the public sector enterprises which are set as NPOs, non-profit organizations. They are not coming into this public sector enterprise policy. So public sector enterprise policy is more applicable to those which are registered as a company, not as a non-profit organization or as a trust. So this is something which could be important from examination point of view, that government is trying, what do you understand by strategic disinvestment? Strategic disinvestment is where government, on the recommendation of Niti Aayog, government is trying to disinvest in those industries which are not strategically very significant. They might be privatized or might be closed, while those which are significant from internal security point of view, from energy point of view, from financial inclusion point of view, for the social welfare point of view, for that we will go easy in terms of disinvestment. And from this disinvestment we can get money which we can use to get even more projects, and that's how I told you that we try to make a cycle. This is something which is advised by Niti Aayog. Then if you see that there are certain Cpscs which are not the part of this public sector enterprise policy, CPSC policy, the total number is 256, as you know. This policy is something is not talking about those which are trust or non-profit organization. Now if you see sector wise, what is the performance? Steel. Obviously steel is something which is a very promising sector for India. Here I would like to add one thing as a background, that India is having what is called National Steel Policy also. We have National Steel Policy since 2017, where we are trying to make our steel production to 300 metric ton. 300 metric ton is what we want to make up to. As of now, if you see, we are somewhere hovering around 66, 70 kind of. Steel is something, as you know, that iron plus carbon, steel sector is a very important sector for infrastructure projects and other things, and needless to say, when it comes to steel, India is looking forward in phased manner how to be better in terms of industrial industry. So cumulative production of crude and finished steel has increased by 25%, 25% in terms of crude and 28.9% in terms of finished steel. When we say finished steel in various capacities. As you know, steel is something where iron plus carbon. This is where we have a technical problem also. I don't want to go that far, but the carbon we import, that's the reason why, if you see that, I think had not been that coal constraint last year, this data would have been even better. The point is that India's steel fundamentals are very good, and India itself is having huge domestic demand. You have seen it earlier in the external sector, we have talked about it, that we are exporting steel also. That is the second best, third best item now. If you see, we are exporting the steel after petroleum product, semi-precious stone, steel is the third best item. So keeping this in mind, steel industry in India is something which is very promising. And the National Steel Policy of 2017 is looking forward for increasing our production to 300 metric ton, and even per capita steel consumption, means every individual steel consumption should be doubled. Steel, when we are saying, not only in crude, even in terms of alloys and all these kind of things, that advanced level of value added steels which are used in different industries, we are looking into that also. So that's why if you see that both are showing improvement. In fact, this is a good news to look at that finished steel is something which is showing a better trend. Finished steel is something which is at 28.9%, especially what you are using in your car and all these kind of things. That clearly indicates that whatever value addition otherwise going outside is now staying in our country. So and this is something which required expertise, so you can say employment generation also. Steel, by and large, the record, the survey is giving a good impression that steel industry is into what is called into good trajectory. And what will be the initiative taken? It is under PLI scheme that you know. I have already told you what is production linked incentive, where 13 sectors has been identified where we are focusing upon incentives given on the production. So if they produce more incentives are given in various capacities. Domestically manufactured iron steel production is the policy is there. Quality control is ensuring that carbon steel, alloy steel, tin plates, tin free steel, stainless steel, etc., etc. And promotion of R&D in the steel sector is something which is also there. So almost if you see that why quality control is needed, so that we can make our things of international competitiveness. If you want to export, you have to be of international competitiveness. So this is how we are promoting R&D also. We are also promoting what is called in terms of quality control orders. So quality control order is one of the reasons R&D has been promoted, and this is how the steel sector of India is doing good. If you see coal, if you see in terms of coal, most abundant fossil fuel in India account for 5% of the country's energy need. 5% of the country's energy need. Coal production has increased by 12.24% in April-October as compared to minus 3.9%, and it's very visible. In the lockdown year, as we had what is called lockdowns, the coal production was something which was not that good. Now the coal production has increased in April to October 2021 by 12.24%. I think this data would have been even more, because last year there was adverse climatic situation also, especially the rainy season. Because if the rainy season is more, this is where our coal production is something which get adversely impacted. That's the reason why, if you could recall, somewhere in that time we have seen suddenly that there was dearth of the coal, and in fact the import is something which was, and we are not alone. The climate situation was somehow responsible, but this 12% growth is something which we have, as we are comparing from the last year, if you see that lockdown year. So that way we have shown improvement, no doubt about it. But this would have been even better. It's not a very good data to look at. It does not mean coal is doing wonderful. It simply means that coal was not that good. But then even when it comes to coal, you know that we are still dependent on thermal energy. We are working into that. But then even if you see that coal production is by and large now coming back to normalcy. Major taken for it, as you know, that carbon footprint we are trying to reduce, and very important, the privatization of the coal mines. So 27 coal mines has been auctioned to the private companies. In terms of coal, 27 coal mines, digitally we had what is called gone for the auctioning, and that is something which was subjected to criticism. But then even we should be careful that by doing this, the Coal India monopoly is something which has been broken, and it looks like that maybe in systematic way Coal India also can witness disinvestment, and there are indicators now that if we are going for disinvestment to that, might create the situation in a better way. This is again a matter of context, or this is something which can be discussed, it can be debated, it can be contested. But as of now, the survey is talking about that how coal by and large has shown the improvement, and we got 27 coal mines being auctioned to the private companies. If you see micro, small, medium enterprises, by and large the share has increased, and we got definition of MSME revised, launch of Udyam registration portal. It's a very important development that we got Udyam registration portal, and then we got champion portal also for MSME sector. So yes, it is there. The launch of champion portal. So Udyam portal and champion portal, they are making opening MSME and following it. In fact, there's a good news which I think is missed here. I personally believe that survey had missed that part. They could have taken a note of it, that even the retail sector, retail shop also could be the part of it. That is definitely is going to have even more opportunities under the champion portal. So there is a champion portal, then there is Udyam registration portal, which is making sure that we are providing all facilities to MSMEs, and MSMEs are, as I told you in the beginning, that they are the job creators. We got the new definition. As per the new definition, in fact, we had given what is called emergency credit line guarantee also to the MSME sector. 3 lakh crore rupees has been offered into the Atmanirbhar Bharat in the lockdown year. The idea was that now they should contribute actively in terms of creating jobs, and at the same time contributing to the production of the economy, to the GDP of economy. So MSME is something which has been prioritized for sure. Textile sector, if you see, it is second largest employment generator. Almost more than 10 crore people are dependent after agriculture. Textile sector is something which is definitely And when we say textile sector, please be careful. Textile is something which is for both man-made textile as well as what is called technical textile. So textile, in fact, like technical textile, if I could give you an example, that is called Mobitech. You might have seen that the textile we use in car seats and aeroplane seats and all these kind of things, that's called Mobitech. So when we say textile, it is a wide range of it. Some of them are called man-made and some of them are called technical textiles. We want to actually relook into the textile sector, which is very backbone of employment in India, and otherwise our textile sector has massive potential. If you see the history of India, textile has been one of the prime generators of the money. So keeping this in mind, obviously textile sector is something which is showing remarkable recovery, and we are having under the PLI scheme, and then what is called very important is now, which we got mega integrated textile region and apparel parks, what's called Mitra Park. So we have 7 Mitra Park, that is mega integrated textile region and apparel parks. Now here I would like to request you again, my personal suggestion is that textile sector, wherever if you are taking a note of it, do note it's very important for mains examination this year. Why? Because as I told you, it is employment generator and we need that. It has a massive potential also. So this means this is something which is very likely. This Mitra Park, that is called Mega Integrated Textile Region and Apparel Park, that rainbow, that means they are 7 in number. They work on 5 philosophy, that is called fiber to factory. One is fiber to factory. Then we call it, once we got it from fiber to factory, from factory to fashion, from fashion to what is called leading towards export. So this is how we are looking into end-to-end improvement in terms of textile industry, not only in terms of man-made but even in terms of technological and R&D, etc., to make sure that textile sector get its glory back. We still have massive potential if the Indian textile is something attached with better R&D, better what is called linking with the fashion industry. So that is something which in the mega integrated textile region and apparel park or Mitra we are trying to focus upon. So be careful, if the question is asked, you have to say how textile sector is important for India, what is the potential of the textile sector in terms of, I think if I'm not wrong, if my memory is right, almost 10,000 crore rupees there in the PLI in the textile sector. That's the reason why I believe that this could be very important for mains examination. The data is somewhere close to it. So clearly indicates that this is something which is one of the priority agenda among the industries so far we have discussed. So one is very important, MSME, that you know what is MSME, you know there is champion portal, you know them registration portal. Already question has been asked on it. So no, so I think that has now relatively lesser potential, but textile, the way we are focusing upon, is something which is going to be very, very important, very, very important from the examination point of view, especially from the mains point of view. So if you see similarly electronics, obviously there was lacklustering demand during the lockdown period, that is understandable, but we have now national policy on electronics. There is a national policy on electronics, NPE 2019, which is under PLI again. So it is under PLI when we are working on the IT hardwares, and we are also having scheme for promotion of manufacturing of electronic components and semiconductors, specs as we call it. So we are working into that what is called electronics component semi. Our own indigenous demand is so good, that's why we are constantly talking about local for vocal. And Prime Minister is focusing upon it, at least the hardware, at least these kind of things, and we have modified electronic manufacturing cluster EMC 2.0. So when we are trying to develop manufacturing cluster for the electronic items, and this is where our Prime Minister was requesting to the people this year's speech, if you can remember from the Red Fort, he was saying that we should be focusing upon it. Last year he had requested that let's go vocal for local, and said if we are using our own products, then only the quality enhancement will be there. So we have a national policy in electronics. It's a primary agenda, needless to say, and we are having what is called under PLI electronics performance, and scheme for promotion of manufacturing of electronic component and semiconductor is something, as you know, that semiconductor is a potential, and India would like to encash it. I personally believe this is where, again, maybe 5 years down the line, I will be giving 3 examples from cryogenic to semiconductors. India has a potential, and a lot of things are being done to ensure that semiconductor is something we can, create more export opportunities also. In fact, for electronics, we got even this is something called Parak, which is a laboratory to map accredited, certified and recognized laboratory in the country on a GIS system. So Parak is there with the help of that Bhaskarachar Institute in Gujarat. So Parak is there, which is a unified laboratory network to map accredited, certified and recognized laboratories. So now where are the laboratories where you can get the thing tested and all that, that will be available in the map with the help of Parak. And Parak is something which is working in collaboration with the Bhaskarachar Institute of Gujarat. Pharmaceuticals, I have already told you that pharma is India's promise. We have the potential of being what is called the world's pharma industry, or you can say the world's pharmacy. In fact, last year we have done wonderful in terms of pharmacy export. This year also it's in the 4th position. Clearly indicates that India is having potential in pharmaceutical. Needless to say, we are attaching with the PLI. So pharma is attached with the PLI, and we have what is called India's pharmaceutical industry. If you see, ranks 3rd in the world in pharmaceutical production by volume, 3rd in the world in terms of volume, and we are the largest supplier of generic medicine with 20% share in the global economy. I want to have your special emphasis here that India is the largest supplier of generic medicine. This clearly indicates India's approach that our pharma sector is something which is not only for money minting, we are also having the humanity concern. So India is the largest. In fact, if I could tell you that we have almost 3,000 pharma company registered in different capacity in India, and with the help of these 3,000, we are creating almost 20% of the global supply chain generic drugs. Clearly indicate that India is one of the important player. So India is largest generic drug contributor and 3rd largest in terms of pharma by volume. Sudden spread in the FDI has increased there, and higher export is there, as I told you already in the export list, that last year we had 2nd best, this time it is 4th best in terms of export. What has been done? It is also under the PLI, and that is how we are also having what is called drug parks, which has been made for the bulk drug productions. So that's how we got sectoral analysis. So if you see in the sectoral analysis, now we have understood what is the situation in steel, by and large a good situation. Coal, not that good, but if you compare with from the lockdown year, relatively better. 27 of the coal mines has been auctioned privately. Then if we talk about particularly this textile, which is one of the biggest generator, we have talked about pharma, we have talked about Msme sector, and if you see that even the electronics, when we are trying to have what is called, now we have what's called Parak, which is a laboratory with the help of Bhaskarachar Institute, and it is something which is locating those testing things. We are trying to have what is called global competence by international standards, and we are having what is called this electronic policy 2019 to make sure that we are making our mark in hardwares and semiconductors and other electronic items. So that's how we got a quick review, but again this chart is very important. I think we can't reduce it further. This is the maximum reduction possible from the content of the chapter from the economic survey. So this is what our team has done, and this way you can go for even quick reference, but I request you that before mains even, this chart should be refreshed in your mind. Then when it comes to infrastructure, as I told you, infrastructure is something which is the key. Give 1 rupees, it will return you back 3 rupees. In fact, I remember one line, I don't know whether it's really the fact or not, but I have heard somewhere from one of the media reporting that Nitin Gadkari ji's office has a very important line at the reception itself. The line is of Kennedy, and that line says, "Do you think America is rich? That's why American roads are good? No, it's American roads are good, that's why America is rich. It's a very, if the Gadkari is having that in the office, that clearly indicates that message is loud and clear. Infrastructure, needless to say, is something which is the very important even for the standards of the life of the people, for the employment creation, and very importantly for making your mark in terms of GDP. And as I told you, we have a dream of being 5 trillion economy. This is something which is imperative. This is something which is a must. So keeping this in mind, if you see that, when it comes to infrastructure, we have that national infrastructure pipeline. I've already told you that it is 111 lakh crore rupees project, 111 lakh crore rupees project, where we have what is called almost 39% share coming from central government, 40% share coming from state governments, and rest will be coming from private players. So this way we are having what is called infrastructure pipeline, and it is something which is largely focusing upon energy, 25% share, road, urban, railways, rural infrastructure, irrigation, social infrastructure, telecommunication, then industrial infrastructure, airport, ports, agriculture and food processing infrastructure. So we are trying to make robust infrastructure with the help of, if you see that, the way we are having what is called 111 lakh crore rupees appointed into this. To make it even faster, we got Gati Shakti. So Gati Shakti will make this project even faster. So when we say this National Infrastructure Pipeline, NIP will be faster with the Gati Shakti, where 16 ministers are coming together on board to make it proper. So that's how we got, even National Monetization Pipeline is trying to make sure that we have money. 6 lakh crore will be generated. National Monetization Pipeline is where 6 lakh crore rupees will be generated by selling it out some of the brownfield project. I think selling it out won't be the right word. Giving them on rent, because the ownership will not be transferred. So let's say there is railway station. Nearby railway station, you might have seen a lot of land is there with the railway, and they are not using it. That has been captured by the local goons. So that land can be utilized now for making warehouses by the private people. This is called Brownfield Project. So Brownfield Project, where something is already been made. Look, the airports, port, railway, at many places, even if you see in various offices, etc., we have what is called, government already has some kind of property, and that has not been utilized properly. So now what we'll do, we will rent it out in a way. We'll get the money in bulk, and that will utilize somewhere else. This is called National Monetization Pipeline. 6 lakh crore rupees will be created with this, which definitely is going to help a National Infrastructure Pipeline. So we are looking into various options of the investment that makes National Monetization Pipeline important, and that is what they have highlighted in the survey. So that's how we got, and this will definitely help because going by that logic, roughly 5.4% of the funding of what is called National Infrastructure Pipeline will come from this source only. So once we got 6 lakh crore rupees coming from this, out of 1 lakh crore rupees, we will get at least 6 lakh crore coming from here, and then some other sources government will try, and as I told you that some of the money will be coming from state governments and from the foreign players. For that we have one investment grid also. One investment grid has been made to attract those who want to invest into this project. If you see road transport sector analysis, road transport, India is second largest in terms of road after the USA. USA is the biggest. India is the second largest world in the world in terms of roads. When we are having roughly, if you see, the data is given 63 lakh kilometers of road. 63 lakh kilometer of the road we have. The data is here, 63 lakh kilometers. America, if you say USA, is close to 67 lakh kilometers if you have to compare. So USA is first, 67 lakh kilometers. Second is India, is with 63 lakh kilometers. Clearly indicate that we are going better in terms of roads, and this includes all the roads, national highways, state highways, then urban roads, rural roads, etc. If you see that the data is there, which is very encouraging, that we are making 28 kilometers per day If you see so if you see we are making 28 kilometers per day in 2019-20, and that has increased to 36.5 kilometer per day. 36.5 kilometer per day in 2021, that is rise of 30.4%. That rise is not important. You should be at least having rough idea that we have increased by 30% in terms of road, and we are making almost 36 kilometer road per day. That is talking about efficiency, that is talking about our commitment towards building infrastructure, because better the roads are. Still in India, the maximum of the freight, the maximum of the transport, almost 90% of the public transport, almost speaking loosely, 65% of the freight is something which is being taken by the roads. So keeping this in mind, better roads means lesser logistics cost, lesser damages, timely delivery, and better competitiveness in the global scenario. So this is how we are working on the roads. Public expenditure has been increased. So that's how in terms of roads we are improving, and needless to say, better the roads, better the infrastructure, better the logistics, better even the standards of the life. In terms of railway, as you know, India is third largest. Now this year I think belongs to the railway, because we are third largest, and for the first time you can see this much of focus again has been shifted back to the railway. When it comes to railway, though in the British time railway was the maximum source for freight corridor, because of the populist major, railways moved towards public transport and lost its glory in terms of money creation, particularly in the freight. Now we got dedicated freight corridors, you are aware of it, hub and spoke models has been made, multimodal centers are, so India is third largest railway. And even in the railway, if you see that we are now focusing upon faster speed, timely delivery, even roll-on-roll things are coming. So what will happen now, multimodal, so maybe there will be place from where you have railway station, road connectivity, aviation connectivity, and even the waterways, so that from one mode to another mode it can be utilized. We have dedicated freight corridors in the railway, both in the east and if you say west, south, in fact all the directions which we are coming up with. So if you see that, keeping this in mind, so now when we are talking about railway is something which is going in a new avatar, I would like to say a new avatar, because now we are going to focus again on the freight part of it. So third largest network if you see, and traffic, if you see that despite the fact that COVID time has got a setback, I think since railway has been formed, to the best of my knowledge, since the railway has been formed, it was the first time that railway was not faring from one place to another in the COVID time. Despite that, if you see, by and large, traffic, if you see during financial year 21, Indian Railway carried 1.23 billion tons of freight and 1.25 billion passenger. Safety, train accident has come down from 59 in 2018 to 55. And now 22. In fact, this is where I would like to say that we got our indigenous technology called Kavach. Kavach is something, yes, I think in 10,000 cases there might be one chance of. What is Kavach? Kavach is our own technology for the collision. It can identify it. It's like that before the collision, we will sense it, and the train will come on halt. This is something, and they are using RFID tags for it. So this is very good indigenous technology which will reduce the cases of collision or the safety issues to bare minimum. So what will happen on the track, will have, I think this year's budget has proposed that we are going to have in this year 2,000 kilometer roads covered under Kavach. Be ready for it. It makes a good question from prelims point of view. So Kavach is something which is indigenous technology, will be used, because this year budget has also talked about it, that we are going to have in this very year 2,000 kilometer of the railway track under this Kavach. It is having safety standard of the 4th category, the best category. Safety standards are there. So now what will happen, there will be tags on the track. The cars will, means radio bogies will have that tag, and it will be radio connected, so that if they are even nearby, they will put on hold. So this way, we are making sure that safety of the railway is something which is kept as a priority. As of now, this Kavach is going on a pilot basis near Hyderabad. So roughly 600 kilometer is what we are trying to figure out that how we stand. So Kavach is something which is very important technology. Even we got what is called Kisan Rail also, which has been promoted. In fact, this time you might be knowing that we got a special train going up to Benipul in Bangladesh for the freight. So a lot of thing has been done in terms of railway. So railway is something which is coming in altogether new avatar. In fact, we got what is called National Railway Mission also. A vision plan has been there for next 10 years up to 2030. So up to 2030, we are now focusing upon that first, infrastructure should be developed, second, safety issues should be taken care of, speed should be increased. So by and large, now we are trying to bring railway as per the expectations of the upcoming generations, the modern railway, what you can call as. So this year budget, if you see, has talked a lot about it. That's why it makes significant here that you should be little aware of that, what is Kavach and what are the dimensions into it. So that's how we got the railway. So railway, we have what is called continuously improvement, and obviously you know that in railway we got what is called disinvestment is also coming in different capacities. Wi-Fi facility has been made, National Rail Plan, as I told you, is there now. This will achieve 100% electrification by December 2023, and we are trying to have an objective that roughly 40 to 45% of the freight should be there by 2030. This is what is the objective, because currently it's roughly 27%. That means we want to increase the capacity to 8,000 metric ton of the freight. And that's why dedicated freight corridors and other things clearly indicate that railway, National Rail Plan, that is for 2030, is something which is very ambitious and prepare a roadmap of the next, let's say, 8 years, that how we are going to work. The first priority is electrification by 2023. The second priority is, as you know, Kavach is something which we are trying to increase. Speed will be increased, dedicated freight corridors are being proposed, that will be made. We will create more infrastructure, Vande Mataram trains will be increased, and this way we will make sure that we are getting closer to 40 to 45% of the total freight come by railway. As of now, it's something close to 25 to 27%. So civil aviation, if you know that this is something which is again very important, because we have schemes like Udan. Udan is bringing regional connectivity. So we are trying to develop, now we have Udan 4.0. So Udan 1, 2, 3, now Udan 4.0 with focus on northeastern part also. So when it comes to regional connectivity, Udan is something which is very ambitious program of civil aviation. Again, aviation is a very promising industry in India. We have already witnessed the disinvestment of the Air India. Then we have what is called some privatization of the airports by Airport Authority of India. The idea is to create money for the purpose of monetization pipeline. So if you see that, domestic traffic is something which is increasing the civil aviation, and we are creating, as you know, transport bubbles, air bubbles has been created, disinvestment has happened, privatization, modernization is going on, and regional connectivity, RCS Udan, we got 4 versions of it, now we have Udan 4.0. Incentivization of maintenance, repair and overhaul operations are there. We are going with a higher purchase of Boeing and all these kind of buses also. So this way we are trying to have what is called more functioning in terms of civil aviation. So civil aviation is something which is a promising sector in India, and definitely with RCS Udan kind of thing, even we are now looking at better domestic connectivity and international flights definitely. And one of the most awaited was disinvestment in terms of Air India, and besides even we have what is called airport authorities are being privatized. We are continuously working on the what is called modernization of the airports and making sure that our flights are going safer. And what is called the cost is something which has also been regulated by the Aviation Ministry. Even a few days back, Sindhya ji was the concerned minister, was highlighting it that now we are revising the tariff again to make sure that people are preferring airways for sake of movement from one place to another. If you see port, as you know that when it comes to port in India, we have 12 major ports that come into central government and 200 small ports that come into the state government. Now we have one private port also, that's how we have 13 major ports. So for the first time I have seen this in economic survey that now instead of calling it 12, they prefer the term 13, which I think is welcoming one. So 13 major ports, 12 plus 1 as we call it. So capacity of 13 major ports has been increased by 79%. Traffic handled at the major port declined. If you see that average turnaround time is ship is coming, unloaded, cleaned, turned, reloaded and moved further. This entire time is called turnaround time. We have high turnaround time, though we are year after year this data is very soothing. Our turnaround time is now further reduced to 55.99 hours. But still very high, almost 60 hours means, roughly speaking, you can say more than 2.5 days. That is very still high. There are countries, if you see where port is doing well, in fact if you see China also, it's something in some countries less than a day. So we need to improve at least 3 times more to get to the international standard, and that increases our cost. That's why we are going for, last year one major development has happened that we got Port Authorities Act. So far the major ports were regulated by Port Trust Act 1963 that has been amended in 2020, and we got Port Authorities Act with more autonomy to them. The survey has said that definitely has helped in terms of better administration of the port. So that's how we are having what is called turnaround time has improved. You are not supposed to mug up the data, but you should have rough idea that roughly 2.5 days is something which is required. Then traffic handled is something, and then Indian fleet is very less if you see of the global fleet, just 1.2%. Though we have the potential, needless to say, and if you go with what is called better modernization of the ports, which we are now thinking in the Port Authorities Act, money is being pumped into it. We need better ports and better waterways connectivity. Because if you see that is what we are looking at in Sagarmala. Sagarmala is a project, very ambitious project with 4 things: port development, trade across that port area, communities development in that area. So Sagarmala is something which is a very ambitious program for the because we have huge coastal line, almost 7,500. I'm going the rough data, and we have 111 waterways. That potential should be encashed. So this, if you see, that will be possible only when we are upgrading on our ports. So that's how we are having scheme providing subsidy support to Indian shipping companies. Those shipping companies which are working and trying to take a lead, subsidy has been given to them. Sagarmala, as you know, it's a national program on port modernization, then connectivity enhancement, port-led industrialization and coastal community development. These 4 are the objectives of the Sagarmala. I'm sure you have heard of it, but then even Sagarmala is a very ambitious project for what is called port modernization and new port development. Connectivity enhancement, that is second. Port-led industrialization, that is third, and coastal community development, coastal shipping is something which is fourth. So Sagarmala is because we have huge coastal and we can use it. So keeping this in mind, needless to say, we need to upgrade our port as per the future. We had good one, but most of them are aging now. If you see that turnaround time is something which is also increasing because of advancement of the port is missing. That is why Port Authorities Act has been introduced last year in 2020. I'm sure you have read about it here and there, but for those who are not knowing, they should be aware of that this Port Authorities Act 2020 has given a lot of autonomy to the port authorities to take decision, to operate, even to finance and all that kind of opportunities. So Sagarmala is something which is looking for the advancement of the port. Port Authorities Act, as I just told you, is there, and captive policy for port dependent industries is there which is this captive policy, will look into, this is another important development, very important one, which prepare to address the challenges of renewal of concession period, scope of expansion, that what needs to be done for port development. And like National Rail Plan, we have Maritime Indian Vision 2030 also. So be careful even for railway, for port, because our focus is on, we want to shift from roads to railways and ports. So we got a vision now for 2030, when we will be, a blueprint has been prepared that what we are going to do. Here information has been provided of PM Gati Shakti also, so that we can bring better connectivity. As I've already told you, what is that? It is an integrated plan ensuring multimodal, means where we have road, rail, all that kind of connectivity, and seamless connectivity for people, goods and services. It covers 16 ministries on board to make sure that things are coming together and getting better. It is 100 lakh crore rupees, but please be careful, this 100 lakh crore rupees is not additional allocation, it is something which is the cost, as we already talked about, National Infrastructure Pipeline, NIP cost. So it will take all the thing, Udan, Bharatmala, Sagarmala, other kind of things, putting together so that better coordination is there, faster development of the infrastructure is there, and we can have what is called lesser cost, and we also can increase global competitiveness. So that fact has been provided, and we have regulatory amendment through the Inland Vessel Act. Jal Marg Vikas project is also there from Varanasi to Haldia, as you know that waterways one. So keeping this in mind, we are trying to have what is called, we are looking at the option of waterways is environment friendly, cheaper also. What is needed is the infrastructure development, so that has been prioritized. Then if you look into telecom sector, this is another very promising sector, telecom globally, because of we are into the communication age. Do you see everything is going online these days? So telecommunication is definitely a very important sector. So the information has been provided that how we have total telephone subscriber has been is now 1200 million in March 2021. Rural urban share, 45% of the subscribers are in the rural and 55 are in the urban. Rural subscriber is something which is increasing at a faster pace. And narrow band, if broadband is available across 96%, average wireless data usage has increased. Now this is general behavior, don't mug up the data, but you can see that average wireless data use has increased to 14 GB per data user per month from 1.2 GB. So you can see that a lot of thing is clearly indicating that wireless data use has increased, broadband facilities to 96% of the users, and then subscriber has increased to 1200 millions now. What has been done, BharatNet project is there. So they had given, BharatNet project is when we are in developing optical fibers. So 5.4 lakh kilometer, this is very surprising data though. 5.4 lakh kilometer optical fiber has been laid, and a total of 1.73 lakh gram panchayat has been connected by the optical fiber. This data is something which you can use here and there, even in e-governance when you are talking about it. This is definitely going to facilitate the e-governance. So BharatNet project is having now almost 5.5 lakh crore optical fiber, 5 lakh kilometer optical fiber is there. And if you see that 1.73 lakh, that means a decent number, 1.73 lakh gram panchayats has been connected to it. And if you see that 4,173 GPs has been connected over the satellite media. Gram panchayats, 4,173 gram panchayats are now via satellite media also. We have comprehensive telecom development plan, particularly for northeastern region, where we are lagging a bit, and comprehensive telecom development plan even for island to provide what is called mobile connectivity. So there are certain, this chart is there in the economic survey also. So we have structural reforms like we got rationalization of adjusted gross revenue. Adjusted gross revenue was a debate actually, let me tell you very brief, that how the government and the telecom companies, when the spectrum was allotted to them for the net usage, will be sharing their data. So how the revenue will be shared between the government and the companies that was under some dispute. Now that has been sorted out, and that is what we call adjusted gross revenue. Then bank guarantees against the license fees, all that has been rationalized. We had improved upon it. Now if you see that tenure of spectrum has been increased from 20 years to 30 years. No spectrum usage charges is there now. If you're not using spectrum, this is not there. And if you see ease of doing business is something there. KYC reform has got digitalized. So that is how we are working upon telecommunication sector, providing them all necessary ease so that they can grow. So, and that's why India's telecom sector is looking very promising. So then if you see petroleum, crude and natural gas, again in terms of petroleum, crude and natural gas, if you see the India's dependence on import to meet more than 80% of our requirement, as I told you, this is our structural problem, that we are dependent on the fossil fuel. So be it crude oil, condensate and all that kind of thing, we are dependent upon it. So if you see production of crude oil and condensate, natural gas and petroleum products in the processing, crude oil has decreased during the year 2020-21 if you compare with 2019-20, and it is very much understandable. Why? Because of the lockdown thing. This can be attributed to decline production from, and then even there is another factor that our old and marginal fields, unplanned shutdowns, no, these kind of are the reasons. So they had given the reason why our production has gone down. But in fact, if you see to some extent on the demand side, again if you read the original document, if they had said that even demand side was also sluggish, demand was also not been created. Lakshya Bharat Petroleum portal has been launched. Now if you see, Lakshya Bharat portal is being launched for promoting transparency in the petroleum sector. So that requires all oil and gas organization to upload detail of various items. So now what is the situation is that Lakshya Bharat portal is something, this Lakshya Bharat portal is being launched for promoting transparency. That is now everyone, every company will be giving the data, real-time data, that how much of production they are doing. Ujjwala 2.0, you know, Ujjwala 1 we have already achieved the target, so Ujjwala 2.0 has been introduced for providing even what is called additional 1 crore LPG connectivity to the low-income families. Then measures taken as national gas grid, city gas grid distribution, etc. Electricity, if you see the total installation, power capacity and captive power plant. Captive power plant is the power plant which companies are using for their self. In terms of electricity, if you see that power capacity has increased, so it's a routine thing, nothing much to say. Total installed power capacity and captive power plant is something which is witnessing a growth of 2 point, understandable because the energy demand is increasing, so the growth. But when it comes to energy, we have to be very careful. Our energy demand is still 1/3 of the per capita energy consumption of the world is 1.8 TOE. It is calculated in terms of TOE, that is tons equivalent of oil equivalent. Our is 0.6. Clearly indicates in time to come our energy demand will further increase. So keeping this in mind, we need to work on this part. That's the reason why we are moving towards clean energy. There's a World Bank report called Mineral for Climate Action. World Bank is emphasizing that now we should gradually move toward clean energy, and for that other minerals should be used than the fossil fuel. We have what is called various things in terms of solar PVs, wind energy, minerals like copper, aluminum, iron, manganese, nickel, they are important. R&D has to be promoted, because if we promote R&D, we can see alternatives that how other minerals. So that's very important report. Again, you can expect this in prelims, that who makes this report, Mineral for Climate Action. This report is given by World Bank, and it talks about that we should promote R&D. We should promote what is called facilitation for other minerals, because even I was reading one of the documents few days back that lithium could be utilized also. So keeping this in mind, for clean energy, for green energy, we should be focusing upon other minerals, and World Bank has given a report called Mineral for Climate Action. So that is something which has been given here. So where the focus is that we need diversification, we need R&D, and we have to develop what is called storage for intermittent electricity generation. So that's how we talked about, how the, electricity, if you see that renewable energy in terms of solar, wind, biomass, hydrocarbon, that all is 24.7% of the country's installed power capacity. In fact, here a chart has been provided, if you see that how we have what is called different kind of thermal 67, nuclear 1, and then hydro, and then renewable energy sources. So that is how we are having energy losses in transmission. This is another concern, but the good thing is that it is something which is now gradually declining. However, northeast region still have the highest loss because of the structural problems. And then we have what is called green energy corridor, which is launched, aim to synchronize electricity production from renewable sources. We are working on that, how we can, even there is a bundling of energy now, that is conventional energy and because the problem with the renewable energy or the solar energy kind of thing, that they are not reliable, that much. So we are doing the bundling of the energy now, and for that, in fact, if you see, there are already, for this energy sector, though I don't want to get into that, but I would like to tell you very briefly that Kelkar committee has recommended, even Niti Aayog had said that energy sector reforms are needed. And in the reform, the first thing should be done that there are so many ministries, they should be clubbed into one, the way we have done in Jal Shakti Mantralaya. If we do that, definitely will be useful. So now we are trying to have what is called green energy corridor, when we are trying to synchronize the conventional and the non-conventional energies so that we can use more renewable kind of energy. And then, a quick index has been given. I told you what is 8 core industries and how it has been prepared, what is capacity utilization, RBI's business expectation index. I have already told you that how RBI makes it called abacus. Gross fixed capital formation is that how much of total asset you had made in 1 year in terms of machinery equipment. So let's see chapter at a glance. Gradual unlocking of the economy. We have got record vaccination, improvement in the consumer demand. Overall has shown that our industry sector is coming back. Industrial performance has shown improvement. Buoyant FDI inflow is there. Production and incentive has definitely scaled up the industries, and several initiatives like National Infrastructure Pipeline, Monetization Pipeline, Gati Shakti, etc. there. Capital expenditure for the Indian Railway has been substantially increased to almost more than 2 lakh crore. If you want to read the statistics, more than 2 lakh crore. And then the government has also heralded a major boost in the electronics with the new electronic policy 2019. So this is how we got. Again, I will say that look, as our requirement was very specific that I should be telling you, this was more informative. So if you read information 1 or 2 times, things will be, and whenever I try to bring your focus, I hope that will remain in your mind, and when the question is asked, you can recall it. So this is how we got this chapter, more informative in orientation, but very useful, particularly the infrastructure thing. That list, I hope, will be very useful even from the mains examination, and here and there a few questions could be asked even in prelims, like I think Kavach is very important from prelims point of view, and so on. So let's see quickly whether you are comfortable with the questions or not. We had given additional questions also, like in the context of industrial sector, which of the following has not witnessed a negative growth? I already told you that there are 4, and electricity, gas, water supply was continuously in the positive territory. You can answer it. Numerous reforms were undertaken to support the economy during COVID. In this context, in which of the following sectors has FDI limit been increased to more than 49%? Defense, yes, 74%. Insurance, yes. Petroleum, natural gas, again, it is 100%. You can answer accordingly. With reference to the operating central public sector enterprises, consider the following statement. Net profit of the Cpscs during 2019-20 has been more than 5 lakh crore. No, it's close to 1 lakh crore. So statement is wrong. Currently less than 100 Cpscs are operation. No, we have 256. So that statement is wrong. As per the new public sector enterprise policy, banking is categorized as the strategic sector. That is right. Financial inclusion sectors are a part of it. Accordingly, you can answer. So with reference to the industrial sector, consider the following statement. Share of the construction in the industrial sector, GVA is more than mining and quarrying. First is manufacturing, then construction, then energy, this electricity, etc., and then mining and quarrying. Manufacturing occupies the largest share in the industries. Accordingly, you can answer. So these are how the questions we had given. Some other questions now you can try at home also. And then we had given you two major, knowing that this could be significant. One is about telecom sector, another is in terms of how we are improving in terms of FDI policies. In fact, you also can add something like telecom sector, what's called textile sector, and the attempts taken for enhancement of the textile sector. So that's how we got this chapter. Again, I would like to bring to your notice, this is the document provided by the vision to you by our organization. Our team has done, I would like to say, that's wonderful task. Repeated, you can say, discussions on that what should be briefed into from the economic survey. So if you read the original document and if you read this, even you will figure out that yes, reading this could have suffice your requirement. So this is the original documents available for what is called download. You can download it. If you believe into what is called physical version, you can take printouts of it. And in the last of every chapter, we have given questions that you should try to attempt to answer, that will tell you that how much of factual key facts you have got, along with what is called your understanding. So this is how we got economic survey, and this is how we try to discuss the economic survey in different capacities. So one more thing I'd like to say, that in this economic survey, as I told you in the beginning itself, in the economic survey we tried to add this kind of what's called satellite imagery also. So if you see, this is the document which the organization provides, and it is roughly 98 pages document, can be worth for very quick revision even in the mains and the prelims sector wise. External sector, I have discussed sustainable development. I told you that's very important from mains point of view. So if you see this way, the document, and please, I would like to bring it to your notice. Again, I request it to you that economic survey is something. If you cannot read the entire document, I understand more than 400 pages, a lot of statistics. At least you should be cursorily going into this document. Do not try to mug up the data. That's why in front of you, I deliberately, it would have been easy for me to read the data also when I am reading, but that is something which I want you to be very specific about. It's not the data which they want from you, they want the trend from you and its application in your knowledge, in your answer writing, in mains also. So this is how we got this. Now before moving further, let's take a quick look to the original document very cursorily. This is the original document of the, if you see the economic survey. We got various, the economic survey, when we got the chapters and all. So each of the chapters available. In fact, as I was talking about, let's quickly wind up with this chapter. So this is the original document. If anyone want to refer to that, even that is available. So this kind of thing, I think, is I already told you that is a new development which they have tried to do with the help of images and all. All right, there seems to be some technical issue probably. Maybe the file is big, that could be one of the reasons. But I would like to say that do see this document at home, particularly the 11th chapter where they have done this comparison. Where they have done this comparison, that how, what they have done, they have taken the image. Let's see how much of electrification has happened. So they have seen the luminosity image. They have seen that how much of urbanization has happened in the last say 15 years. So I think it's a good practice which they tried to do. Not that significant from examination point of view, but as a curious reader, you should try to look into that too, on and off. So this was about economic survey. We, along with the team and the other faculties, we tried to provide a detailed discussion to you with the emphasis what could be significant from prelims and moons examination. I think the maximum credit should be going to the team which has prepared this document, which is definitely a tedious task on such a short notice. They had made this document, and we hope that this document will be useful for you in the examination and even for the general understanding. So with this, I would like to call it a day. I hope you enjoyed these 5-6 days of discussions, and we wish you all the very best for examination. For any further inquiry or any further, say, concern related to this survey or something, you can even directly ask to me also. I'm giving you my email ID for that purpose. This is my email ID. If anyone has a concern, can raise this. We will be delighted to answer you. sunilkumarsingh2@gmail.com. So this was it about economic survey. Thank you and all the best.